Over churches and mosques, and this is the unit on early Christian, and it goes into the Renaissance. But let's start with the churches and mosques because for the AP exam, for religious architecture, you want to know the art, but you also want to know the ideas of the religion and how they're expressed in the building and what people do in the religion and how that is done in the building. We'll just go over that in a second. The other thing as we go forward, a lot of times the AP exam will ask you to fully identify an image. And to do that, you need three of these: the title, the material, the date, style or culture, architect or artist if it's known. You need three of those, two or three to get a point. And then as we review for your review sheet, for every image, fully identify it. And then images are famous for something. Write down what it's famous for. Some things are more famous than others. You'll see what I mean. So what's it famous for? What's it known for? What's the story of the work? And then something about form, the art, the appearance, the technique. It might be an icon, something about the form. And then think of a connection. What's it similar to and what's it different from? Okay. All right, so let's go and look at some churches here. Remember, there's the natural world that we live in and the supernatural world of beliefs. And religious architecture connects the physical and the metaphysical. It's a nice picture. All right, and there, of course, is the Pantheon connecting the two. All right, so let's go early Christian here, and this is the early Christian catacomb. For this one here, this would be in the Roman Empire, and this is really more about painting. Will come up later because it's got the first picture of Jesus, but that's an early catacomb, early Christian catacomb. There's not too much on that one. Now, for Christian churches, just to give you a heads up, the priest is in the front, the people sit here, and churches are made for the believers to come in and worship. Same with the mosque. As opposed to a Greek religion where the church was for the god. Okay, Rome becomes Christian late, and then Rome falls. That's why this was part of the Roman Empire, even though it's early Christian. So Rome will fall in the west, but it will live on in Byzantine in the east. So technically Rome falls, but now we go to the Byzantine. All right, Byzantine churches, that's San Vitale and is the famous one. And there's the floor plan of San Vitale. And Byzantine churches are called a central plan. And you can just see it. It's got a dome centered, and it's a centrally planned church. That's the Byzantine. The outside is simple, and the inside is beautiful. They put mosaics on the inside, and that symbolized inner beauty, spiritual beauty. So Byzantine churches are famous for the mosaics, like the Justinian mosaic and the Theodora mosaic. So this is a Byzantine church. Remember, the Byzantines, the emperor was secular and religious. So here he's secular with the army, and here he's religious with the priests. So that's the San Vitale, a Byzantine church. Okay, another Byzantine church is Hagia Sophia, and that's Hagia Sophia. It was turned into a mosque, but it was a church. And it is famous for pendentives. And pendentives are these structures here that allow them to put a giant dome on top. And that's Hagia Sophia. It was an amazingly big, magnificent church of the Byzantine era. Also had beautiful marbles, beautiful stone, and it was a beautiful building, and its dome was considered like it floated in heaven. And that's it from the outside. Okay, and had the halo of light. All right, and that's San Vitale, Hagia Sophia. They're both Byzantine churches. There's just a map there. Over here is Catholic, and over here is Central Byzantine. And then you take the dome. This is the ice cream cone church in Moscow, and it still has the dome in the center because it's still from that Byzantine era. Okay. All right. Next we'll go. Now let's go. We were over here in the east. Now let's go to the west, what they call a Latin church or a West church. And basically this goes on a basilica plan. And a basilica plan is a rectangle, and it is not a central plan. Okay. The first one is Santa Sabina, and it looks like this and this. And what they did at Santa Sabina was, it was an early church in Rome, but what they did was they took the city hall, the basilica, and they got rid of the emperor and they put in Jesus, And so you had Santa Sabina is the first earliest church, and there it is there. And they put the cross there. If this was a Roman church, you would have the emperor. Here you have the cross here. Okay, and that's a church. If you see the term West work, the entrance is in the west, and Jesus is in the east, and the priest is in the east because the sun rises in the east. So you enter in the west, and you look at the sun, you look at the sunrise, that symbolizes Jesus. So that's the west work. Things to be aware of. Transept is this cross pattern that makes it bigger. Apse is over here. Nave, think of navel in the middle there. And then narthex, think of exit. That's how you enter the church. Okay? The altar is in the front, and we always want to know, in a church you do rituals. The Eucharist ritual will be in the front by the altar. Later we'll see altar pieces. That's art that will go on the altar. All right, now we're going to jump. About 1,000, order comes, town comes, pilgrimages, people walk around Europe. And in the feudal system, you're going to have a pilgrimage church like St. Foy or Romanesque. And that's it from the outside. That's it, the Romanesque on the inside. That's the Last Judgment on the outside. And that's a reliquary, which is has St. Foy was, people bring their jewels and put it on there. That's the reliquary. So these are all from St. Foy. It's a pilgrimage church, which means it's a big church that people come from all over Europe to visit because they want to get closer to God. So they bring their jewel. They want to get close to St. Foy. And so all those jewels on there, people brought to St. Foy. And then Christianity changes. This is the Last Judgment. It's kind of scary. He is judging. On the left are the damned, and on the right are those going to heaven. That is Jesus judging. Okay. All right, and then it's got a barrel vault, Romanesque, Roman-ish. So it's got that barrel vault. There's the Roman arch. There's a Romanesque church. And then an arcade is a series of arches. And that's the floor plan of a Romanesque church. This transept here, think of T, it makes it bigger. And then it has chapels because the pilgrims come to visit with what they call these radiating chapels. Or the ambulatory is what you walk around here is the ambulatory. And you might visit these chapels as you walk. Portals are the entrance to the church. All right. Then we'll go Gothic. For Gothic, just stay with the Romanesque church, make it bigger. So the towns expand and the churches expand, and then you get a Gothic design, which is of order and beauty, and it's very vertical. All right, key thing, so this is a Romanesque church. You can see it here, round and kind of dark. Gothic goes vertical, brings in stained glass, gets very, very tall. Key thing you want to know, flying buttresses. This supports the building. Gothic, this supports the wall. So the wall is not a load-bearing wall. You can put windows into the wall. So the flying buttresses really change the architecture. And that's them on the outside. And then they have pointed arches, which are pointed and go taller. They might have a ribbed vault, which is a rib here that supports it. And that's the floor plan of Gothic. It's hard to see, but it's bigger. It's expanded. This area here is much, much larger because more people would come to the Gothic church. And then, of course, stained glass, we'll get to that later when we get to the decoration. But you can see it side by side. Romanesque, round, Gothic, vertical. And there's the front, the facade. Now, careful with Chartres because it began as Romanesque and then it became Gothic. So just be aware of that. But that's the Pilgrimage St. Foy, and that's Chartres Cathedral. And that's from the outside. The portals. Last Judgment portal, Gothic portal. Everything is expanded. Here you have a larger portal over here. We'll get to that one later. And of course, stained glass, and that's St. Foy. Okay, the Arena Chapel. The main thing of the Arena Chapel really is the painting of Giotto. So I would just be aware this is the Arena Chapel, Scrivoni. He was the guy that paid for it. But really, we'll get into the painting of this later. That's the famous thing of that chapel. And this is just before the Renaissance. Okay. Then, of course, we have the Sistine Chapel. And guess what that's famous for? Michelangelo. So that's the Sistine Chapel. It's the place where they pick the new pope. It's got the most famous work of art probably of all time. But we'll come back to, we'll hit the painting later when we cover painting. All right. And then, so remember in a church, what you do in a church is believers go in and they worship, they pray, They do the Eucharist. They listen to the priest. It's made for the Christians. Same thing with a mosque, all right? So here's a mosque, and yours is Great Mosque Cordoba. And here are your pictures. From the outside, it's very plain, and the inside, very beautiful. That's the famous horseshoe arch. And what you do is you go to pray, and you find the Qibla wall, and that faces Mecca. So part of the 5 pillars of Islam. You find the Qibla wall, and you kneel, and you pray 5 times a day. And that's the mihrab, which is the wall which is blank, and the style is is abstracted, because in Islam, God is beyond this world, so the art is beyond natural. It's non-representative art. All right, floor plans of a mosque. That tells you where the arch is. This must be the Qibla wall. So this floor plan tells you where to kneel, how to face Mecca. This would be the mihrab, and this would face Mecca. That is a floor plan of Cordoba. And there's the mihrab. It's the niche here, and that's the Qibla wall. The mihrab is on the Qibla wall, and it faces Mecca. And that's from the outside, an elevated shot. And there's the garden, and then the garden's on the outside. And then the garden's in the water. Okay, now Alhambra. Alhambra was a military fort, but it was also a beautiful Islamic site, especially Court of Lions. Now remember, in Islam, water symbolizes God. It's a blessing that will save you in the desert, and it's a blessing that will save you in life. So the gardens and the water of Alhambra, and over here in the gardens of Cordoba, represent the blessings of God. The water will hit you just as God will hit you in a good way. And those are the gardens, and there's more gardens and more gardens. And that is the Court of Lions. Okay. All right, and that's it for the churches up through mosques. We'll pick up on the Renaissance on the next one.